This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for your company. Coming up on the show, he's back. The left-wing activist on $15 million a year who spreads disgusting lies, such as lying about the murder of a husband and father just so he could smear Republicans. Well, he's back, and according to the New York Post, Jimmy Kimmel has no intention of apologising, which says a lot about him, doesn't it? Since Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air last week, there have been lefties protesting in the streets. A man opened fire on an ABC affiliate in California, potentially motivated by Kimmel's suspension. And Hollywood celebrities like Cynthia Nixon and Mark Ruffalo have been losing it, having tantrums into their phones.
This cancellation is the United States government coming and taking your voice away from you. Think of yourselves living under the Taliban, because that's where we're headed.
I mean, the left were telling us that Jimmy Kimmel's suspension was a greater attack on free speech than the murder of Charlie Kirk. And now Disney has caved and Jimmy Kimmel Live is coming back. A show that's losing 40% of its audience, is struggling to retain advertisers, and it's coming back to bring you not just disgusting lies about MAGA, but more of this.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Charming. We'll have much more to say about this with our guests later in the show, but also coming up, Donald Trump and RFK Jr. make a major announcement regarding autism rates. And once again, Donald Trump snubs Australia's Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Australia's Prime Minister has once again failed to secure a meeting with the leader of the free world during his visit to the UN. It's embarrassing. But first, let's talk about Charlie Kirk's memorial and what we witnessed yesterday. It was not just millions around the world tuning in to mourn the death of Charlie Kirk, but witnessing a spiritual revival. And I think Elon Musk said it best yesterday that Charlie Kirk was killed because he was showing people the light, and he was killed by the dark. And I think we all know that to be true. Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, has shown so much courage, so much grace, and shown us all a way forward, forgiving the man who killed her husband.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
How incredible is Erica Kirk? And saying this is a spiritual revival, I do not think is overstating it. We are seeing not just an outpouring of love for Charlie Kirk, but we're seeing more and more people feeling called to go to church, to pick up the Bible and return to their faith. JD Vance said he's talked more about Jesus in the past 2 weeks than he has in his entire life. And Stephen Miller gave a very powerful speech as well, claiming that we will defeat the dark and millions will carry Charlie Kirk's legacy.
The light will defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble.
Joining us now is Hilary Fordwich, President and founder of Strellmark. Hilary, thank you so much for your time. Yesterday, tens of thousands gathered to honour and remember the life of Charlie Kirk in Arizona. And there were so many incredible moments throughout the memorial, and they could be felt right here in Australia and I'm sure all over the world. Now, this is part of the President's tribute to Charlie Kirk.
Charles James Kirk was heinously murdered by a radicalized, cold-blooded monster for speaking the truth that was in his heart. He was violently killed because he spoke for freedom and justice, for God, country, for reason, and for common sense. He was assassinated because he lived bravely, he led boldly, and he argued brilliantly without apology. He did what was right for our nation.
Hillary, I think the president was absolutely spot on there, and it was really heartwarming to see the president be such a source of comfort to Erica Kirk, and what an incredible woman she is for giving the man responsible for her husband's murder. Hillary, what did you make of that?
Well, yes, thank you for having me back again, Gabriella. Always a pleasure to be with you, but a very sad subject. I do think she is absolutely incredible. It's not surprising, really, that Charlie would have an incredible wife. Obviously, she's extremely beautiful, but obviously he wanted her for her great depth and her intellect and her passion, her commitment to family, country, and her religious deep faith. I think what's most inspiring, and I've heard so many young women, you've seen this across the internet, he's addressed young men and young women, but I think he's inspired a movement. I would actually say, and to paraphrase what she said, Erica said, was, they thought they were silencing Charlie, but really they haven't. We're doubling down. And I think you're going to get double the amount of people. A lot of young women have said they're inspired with the message too. And very importantly, I think, Erica, when you look at this in contrast to other deaths, such as, say, for example, George Floyd, where there was burning and protests, a lot of arson and violence. This was peaceful. Over 90,000 people just in that stadium alone, and all peaceful.
It really was, and JD Vance described it as a revival, and I don't think that's an overstatement. I mean, since Charlie Kirk was murdered in the most horrific way, the most evil way possible, killing someone who was so good, we've seen so many people right around the world kind of return to church, pick up the Bible for the first time, but lots of speeches yesterday. This is a bit of JD Vance.
I can't help but think that they tried to silence my friend Charlie Kirk. They tried to silence our dear friend Charlie Kirk. And tonight, we speak with Charlie and for Charlie louder than ever. The evil murderer who took Charlie from us expected us to have a funeral today, and instead, my friends, we have had a revival in celebration of Charlie Kirk and of his Lord Jesus Christ.
I think he's exactly right. Also, Turning Point USA's new tour will begin today at the University of Minnesota, where Conservative commentator Michael Knowles will be filling in. But Hillary, I believe this movement, it's only going to grow, it's only going to get bigger.
You're absolutely correct there as well. I will say that I believe, and I always like to state when I know the actual facts, the purported number was about, I believe, 67,000 new applications for Turning Point chapters in universities, colleges, and high schools across the US and other parts of the world too. Don't forget, he spoke at Oxford just this past May in England. And I think this is also not just the United States. It's elsewhere because of that. The march in London on September 13th, the Freedom UK march, that was arranged, of course, long before, but it turned into also a Charlie honoring event with them chanting Charlie over and over again. So I think, Gabriella, it's not just the United States. Thousands of new chapters will be born from this.
Absolutely. We're chanting his name here in Sydney, Australia, that's for sure. Now, just back at looking at the memorial that took place yesterday, it was interesting. Donald Trump and Elon Musk were spotted sitting next to one another in the president's suite alongside UFC CEO Dana White. Let's look at this. Now, Hillary, this is the first time that Trump and Elon Musk have been seen together publicly since their very public fallout. And Elon Musk posted a photo to his X account of the reunion with the caption, "For Charlie." What do you make of this? Is this a sign that they're potentially going to be patching things up?
Well, yes, and absolutely. And actually, Donald Trump posted the same thing for Charlie. So I think you can see that they're united. Also, I did read from lip readers the interpretation of what President Trump had said to Elon Musk. He said, good to see you again. How have you been? And then he said, I've missed you. And I thought that was a really great admission and really very warm. I think it's so good for the nation. I think it's so good for the conservative movement. I think they're far stronger together. It would have been ludicrous, Gabriella, for Elon Musk to have founded another party, because all he really would have done would have been to have split the Republican vote. So this is the best thing. And yes, if it's the Charlie effect, that will be good for the conservative movement indeed.
I think so. I think plenty of people are happy to see the band back together, if you like. But let's look at the Democrats. While many of us were mourning and remembering the incredible Charlie Kirk, dozens of Democrats decided not to join Republicans in approving a resolution honouring Charlie Kirk. So the House of Representatives adopted the resolution, which honours Kirk's life and legacy and condemns political violence in a largely bipartisan vote on Friday. But 58 Democrats voted against the resolution. They include Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Maxine Waters. And it's interesting and sadly not surprising, Ilhan Omar has also doubled down on her disgusting comments about Charlie Kirk, where she essentially blamed him for his own assassination. And this is a bit more of what she had to say on CNN.
What I find jarring is that there are so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day to honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions in the House of Congress honoring his life and legacy. It is one thing to care about his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife. But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind. That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
Should be in the dustbin of history. Hillary, it's pretty disgusting.
Oh, it is. And you were correct on the list that you named of the 58 Democrats that voted against. There were another 22 that abstained from any vote whatsoever. I think actually, ironically, what they've done, if we talked about the Charlie effect of getting President Trump and Elon Musk back together, what they've really done is they've actually broadcast that they're for political violence and they're for principles that aren't acceptable in a civilized society. That's what they've really done. And as I mentioned, it's the usual suspects. I do think also with Ilhan Omar, I think one thing that she actually should be investigated for is, she came into office virtually broke as a bartender. She makes $155,000 a year, and 5 years later, she's worth approximately $29 million. How does that happen? So that's another issue. And also, her family left Somalia. They were involved in sort of like massacres. And her family is not a fine family. And I think there's a lot more to this. I will say actually that even Phil Mickelson, the PGA Pro champion golfer, he even weighed in on how disgusting her remarks were. So far and wide, they're broadcasting that they're basically pro political violence, which is a ghastly place for them to be boxed in. They've done it themselves. It's an own goal.
There have been some major Maha moves. On Friday, a CDC advisory panel voted to change COVID vaccine guidance towards individual decision-making. So this recommendation encourages patients to speak with their doctors about whether to get an updated shot instead of just recommending it for anyone and everyone 6 months or older. Now, that's a huge change, but also, Hillary, today, Donald Trump and RFK Jr. made a major announcement around autism rates. They announced that the FDA will be warning doctors that taking Tylenol during pregnancy may raise the risk of autism. Listen to this.
Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good.
Not good. He's very direct, isn't he? But look, for viewers here in Australia, we have to note that Australia's Therapeutic Goods Association has said it's not investigating the link between Tylenol and autism for Australian consumers, and the TGA has no current active safety investigations for paracetamol and and autism, or paracetamol and neurodevelopmental disorders more broadly. This is what the regulator said in a statement. But Hillary, back to Donald Trump's announcement. What's your take? I want your assessment of this pretty historic announcement.
Yes, everybody, this is something that I think is far more personal. I just don't put chemicals in my body. I mean, if you have a headache, you're probably not drinking enough water because it's dehydration of the brain. If you have other aches and pains, there's many other ways to address it, whether it's stretching, natural homeopathic ways, massages for aching joints. I mean, there's so many things you can do that are far more natural. And also with regard to our health overall and the vaccines, your health is totally dependent on the strength of your immune system. So you can strengthen your own immune system without taking chemicals, which are totally and utterly unnatural. The most important thing is, we have a certain genetic predisposition to our health. You can't control that. What you can control is 100% of the remaining about 73% of your health. And that's your own personal nutrition, exercise, lack of stress, and lifestyle. I think that's so important. Get enough exercise, eat really well, and try not to put chemicals in your body, really any. Yeah, it's so important, just going back to basics. That should really be a big focus of some of the messaging. Now, Trump and RFK Jr., of course, they've said it time and time again, they are supportive of vaccines. However, they are looking into certain vaccines. And Donald Trump is just not afraid to call out what others think is just too controversial as he really takes on Big Pharma. Listen to what he had to say here.
Because when you go from 20,000 to 10,000 and then you go to 12, there's something artificial. They're taking something. And by the way, I think I can say that there are certain groups of people that don't take vaccines and don't take any pills that have no autism. Does that tell you something? That's currently, is that a correct statement, by the way?
There are some studies that suggest that, with the Amish, for example.
The Amish, yeah, virtually. I heard none. See, Bobby wants to be very careful with what he says, and he should, but I'm not so careful with what I say. But you have certain groups. The Amish, as an example, they have essentially no autism.
Listening to Donald Trump, RFK Jr. there, I think hearing them today is a reminder as to why so many people support RFK Jr., so many people support Donald Trump, because they just want more answers and they're happy to see leaders really investigating this.
Yes, I think so. And there certainly is a place. I mean, obviously, pharmaceuticals and vaccines have been responsible for eradicating, some dreadful diseases, whether it's meningitis or polio, measles, etc. But I don't think that the vast majority of the population with this massive increase in vaccine in recent years was necessary. The vaccines that were developed 20, 30 years ago obviously have stood humanity well. Life expectancy is longer than ever. So that there's a certain degree that is beneficial. I think it's the excess, Gabriella. That's the big issue now. The point that President Trump made with regard to the Amish, there are also other, groups in society with different beliefs, and they don't take as many vaccines, and they don't eat things out of packets. There's an American expression, actually, always read the label. And I always say, don't read the label, because don't eat things out of packets. Eat fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and natural things, and you won't have all these issues.
Great advice, Hillary Fordwich. Thank you so much for joining us. Always brilliant to speak with you.
Pleasure, Gabriella. Absolutely.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and on the day that millions of people right around the world were mourning the death of Charlie Kirk as his memorial was being held in Arizona, CNN invites Democrat Jasmine Crockett on the air so she can continue trashing Charlie Kirk with barely any pushback from journalist Dana Bash. Here is Jasmine Crockett. She was, of course, one of 50 Democrats who voted against a resolution to honour the life of Charlie Kirk. And Jasmine Crockett didn't just defend her vote, she went a step further.
One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurts my heart is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was, specifically to us.
Sorry, guys, I forgot that Jasmine Crockett was the victim in all of this. And it didn't take Jasmine Crockett long at all, until she just continued to unleash and lie about Charlie Kirk on the day of his funeral, claiming he was a racist and that he was the one inflicting harm on our communities.
So to me, just like we wanted to make sure that those Confederate relics were taken down, the idea of a new age relic being propped up was something that I just could not subscribe to. And it is unfortunate that more of my colleagues, even on my side of the aisle, could not see the amount of harm that this man was attempting to inflict upon our communities.
The father of two has just been murdered. What harm are you talking about? Again, not a lot of pushback from CNN. They just let her sit there and lie and lie. But we will give credit, of course, where credit is due. And CNN's Dana Bash asked Jasmine Crockett about her language, such as comparing Republicans to Hitler.
I am using that language because it is accurate language. When we see the consolidation of power, when we see them trying to chill speech of jokesters, when we're seeing all of this, that is a playbook out of Hitler, and I won't deny it.
She doubles down. Now joining us now is Sky News host James Morrow. James, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Great to be here, Charlotte.
Can I get your reaction to Jasmine Crockett? I mean, trashing Charlie Kirk on the day of his memorial, and then CNN letting that interview go on for several minutes and not a lot of pushback.
Well, no pushback at all. And the thing is here is CNN deliberately counter-programmed the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service with Jasmine Crockett. So, this is a real conscious decision here. It's not just Jasmine Crockett that we're talking about here. This is CNN, and this is CNN trying to send a message about what they believe in, and they think, oh, well, you shouldn't be watching Charlie Kirk and the memorial service, which, I found incredibly powerful. And I think a lot of people would have found incredibly powerful and just, fascinating from so many different perspectives, to just have this kind of unhinged bile from Jasmine Crockett that is basically kind of, it's a little bit racist with all of the stuff she's talking about, white this and white that and all of that. It's the exact opposite of the message I think Charlie Kirk really was about, and particularly the speech or the eulogy given by his widow Erica, which is all about forgiveness and coming together. But the thing that in that speech she gave, in that eulogy she gave, the thing that really struck me was the line where she talked about not forgiveness, because we knew she was going to say that about forgiveness, because that's sort of very public Christianity and genuine public Christianity. I'm not being cynical about it. Of the Kirk family, has been such a part of their being and their essence. But the key thing here was really, to me, the line where she said, there's no riots, there's no violence, there's nothing like that that's happened in the wake of this death. And to me, that's what that all comes down to. This whole idea that when somebody big on the left gets killed or is elevated into the pantheon of the left gets killed, there's violence, there's riots, there's street action, there's all sorts of things. When Charlie Kirk, who has prompted this outpouring from millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of people, around the United States and frankly around the world. I attended the Charlie Kirk Memorial at Hyde Park a week or so ago. They don't, there's no violence, there's none of that hate, there's none of that bile, and so it's just really telling, I think, what she had to say there.
Oh, absolutely. And she was just full of lies. I mean, I've listened to hours and hours of Charlie Kirk. He had no hate in his heart. He was all about, debate, engaging in debate and doing it so brilliantly. He was absolutely not a racist. And then, of course, Jasmine Crockett can just get away with these lies on CNN on the day of his memorial. Is pretty disgusting. But James, just like you, I went to the memorial in Hyde Park in Sydney, and it was so peaceful. It was so healing, and it was so lovely to be surrounded surrounded by like-minded people who just had so much love for Charlie Kirk. And you mentioned Erica Kirk. I mean, how amazing is she? She is so courageous. I couldn't believe that speech that she was able to give in front of tens of thousands in Arizona, but of course millions of people watching online, and finding the strength to forgive the man who killed her husband. She said, "I forgive him because it's what Christ did. It is what Charlie would do." I mean, she is an incredible woman. But Donald Trump also gave a very powerful tribute. This was part of his speech.
Charlie's murder was not just an attack on one man or one movement. It was an attack on our entire nation. That was a horrible attack on the United States of America. It was an assault on our most sacred liberties and God-given rights. The gun was pointed at him, but the bullet was aimed at all of us.
I agree with that. You know, that attack on Charlie Kirk, it was just so evil. It felt like it was more than an attack on just one man. It felt like it was certainly an attack on America, attack on the West. And also, we heard so many brilliant speeches yesterday, but of course JD Vance, but the Vice President, spoke about the revival we're also witnessing. And I really don't think he's overstating it there, because I think a lot of what Charlie said really went beyond politics, went much deeper than that. You know, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I mean, look, it's fascinating. And I think what, the president said there was absolutely right. And it comes down to something, Gab, that I think, we may have talked about. I know I've spoken to a lot of people about this idea that, the left thinks the right is evil. The right thinks the left is misguided, wrong, but not fundamentally bad people. And, that's the fundamental difference here. And it was such an interesting sort of duality, because there was, it was a very, religion and metaphysics infused event, as you would expect. But it was fascinating to me, too, how also the president, spoke about Charlie loving his enemies and opponents, and him saying, that he hated them. And it's real. I mean, I love that, because you've got that sort of duality, right, in life. And this encapsulated everything, Gab. And like some people say, well, there's a contradiction there, and it's like there isn't, because in a sense, it's Erica's job as the widow to forgive in that Christ-like fashion, but then for Trump, to bring it in sort of biblical terms, Trump is Caesar, right? So it's for him to mete out justice, and these two things are not incompatible. I've heard some people suggest that they were incompatible. I disagree with that, but I also kind of like feel, having watched that and watched all that, that from now on, whenever I've got a dilemma, it's not going to be like the old cartoon angel and devil on the shoulder. It's going to be like a little cartoon Erica Kirk here and a little cartoon Donald Trump here saying, saying, how do you deal with these people who are, coming at you,
Absolutely brilliant. I completely agree with you there, James. Now, we know that the Trump administration is, of course, cracking down on extreme radical left groups fueling political violence. And it's now official. Donald Trump has signed an executive order designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organisation. The president cited Antifa's pattern of political violence designed to suppress lawful political activity and obstruct the rule of law. He cited that in making it the decision. So, James, talk to us about what's going to happen here. I mean, can we expect arrests of those who are potentially bankrolling them?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, eventually it will get to the point where people who are funding and organizations that are funding this sort of street violence, because it is funded, because there are people who have at these riots organized for pallets of bricks and things like that to be arranged. We saw in Los Angeles recently, there were people who were arranging for gas masks to be arranged so that rioters could go up against, Homeland Security and ICE people with tear gas. So we know there's money, we know there's organization. To me, Gab, the really interesting parallel here actually goes back to the 1960s. Now, Lyndon Johnson was president back then. There was a horrific series of lynchings and bombings in the South perpetrated by people associated with the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, against both Black Americans and white civil rights workers who had also gone down to the South. And LBJ instructed J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, to use the Civil Rights Act to go and prosecute and smash the Klan. And that's exactly what they did. Now, there's a similar parallel here, but I don't think you could use the Civil Rights Act here. Instead, what they should be using is the RICO acts, which were the originally mafia targeting acts that are about racketeering, organized crime, and chasing down money and money laundering and money going to fund criminal enterprises, and use that, and I'm instructing Kash Patel to be using that in the same way that Hoover used the Civil Rights Act against the Klan in the 60s, to use that to go against Antifa here today in the 2020s.
Okay, and look, James, I have to ask you about this. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been snubbed once again. He has missed out on securing an official meeting with Donald Trump during his time in New York for the UN General Assembly. I mean, what a joke this is. How embarrassing is this for Australia? It's interesting listening to the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt kind of confirming that Trump will be holding bilateral meetings, of course, with Zelensky, with European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, with Javier Milei, leaders of Qatar, leaders of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, UAE, Jordan. Not our Prime Minister. And why would Donald Trump make the time? I mean, and it says so much about the state.
He should make the time. He should make the time, because Australia is an important part of the American security architecture in the Pacific. There's real reasons why we really should be having leader-to-leader meetings. And it's really bad, and it's a great discredit to Albanese that we are not having those leader-to-leader talks. I think it's a really, dangerous situation. But for the prime minister and the president, in a weird sort of way, this is kind of good for both of them, because neither one of them, I think, really wanted this meeting, particularly not a play. Albanese, the last thing he wants, it's not going to go well. He's going to look weak. He could get told off for any number of things, whether it's, having an e-safety commissioner or having, weak defense spending or whatever, so there's a million ways to go wrong for him. And for Trump, it's a meeting with somebody who he's going to have to, if they do meet, say something bad about potentially, about an ally. So it's bad for him. It's just too messy all around. But I think neither one of them really wanted to. And, for Albanese, he's done this sort of studious avoidance of Trump. And sometimes he's gotten lucky and now he's just, I think by avoiding and by, poking the bear of Palestine and all the other things so much, why would Trump meet him? Why would Trump meet him? And that's exactly the outcome he wanted. He didn't want to meet with Trump, and that's what he got.
Oh, look, I think I would love that meeting to happen so Donald Trump could, give him a piece of his mind, I guess.
I'd love a leader-to-leader meeting.
Wouldn't it be brilliant to see?
Meeting with a good leader, with a real leader who understands, that our best interests are with the United States, not with China. And that's what we need in this country. But we're stuck with this for the next 2.5 years.
I know. And it's so depressing, isn't it, that just yesterday, Anthony Albanese defended Australia's recognition of a Palestinian state just hours after footage was released showing Hamas publicly executing 3 men. So this is at the same time this was happening. Anthony Albanese was formally recognising Palestinian statehood. And again, it just shows, I suppose, where Australia's loyalty is, and it's not with Israel.
Well, I mean, this is so bad because it's like you can have legitimate grievances. I know some people have legitimate grievances with the way Israel has conducted itself in Gaza. That's fine. But it's like you don't, divorce somebody over this one particular thing. There's a long history here that will have to keep going on. There's a lot of different elements to that relationship, including, again, an important security relationship and an intelligence sharing relationship, which is really important. And to, throw a bomb in this metaphorically by, recognizing Palestine and annoying everybody, it doesn't help anybody. But, this is the undergraduate student politics of Anthony Albanese. He's wanted to do this forever, so like he was going to do it. And he doesn't care, and he's rewarded Hamas, and Hamas now thinks like, oh, this is great. We kill a bunch of people, we blow up a bunch of people, we rape a bunch of people, we act, like the worst savages imaginable. And hey, look, we're gonna get a state. How good? It's a joke, Gab.
Yeah,
Come on.
It is such a joke. It's disgusting, and I don't think Anthony Albanese, after doing that, deserves a meeting with Donald Trump, even though it does need to happen, and it's very sad for Australia that this is the state that we're in now, and that the US doesn't seem to want to have anything to do with us anymore. Now, James Morrow, I have to ask you, of course, about some lighter news, but just some pretty big news, of course, that Disney has caved. Jimmy Kimmel is now returning. So after lying about the most high-profile assassination since the 60s, being suspended for a week, lefties absolutely losing it. We saw Hollywood celebrities kind of in tears, protesters out taking to the streets, and now Jimmy Kimmel is coming back. Can I get your reaction?
I don't care because I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel. You know, I don't like, he's just really not funny. And he hasn't been funny for years and years and years, not since he did the Man Show, you know, but you couldn't do the Man Show today. My God. Imagine that. Wow. There'd be a cancellation for you, you know, but that gets down to the huge hypocrisy of this whole thing. You know, like, I'm in all these arguments with people who say, oh, you know, the right is now just, you know, they're just embracing cancel culture. It's like, no. What has happened now, and it's a very helpful thing, is that the left made a whole set of rules. They made a whole set of rules that were really stupid, and they enforced them on everybody else, but not themselves, you know, around, you know, words of violence and, you know, speech is murder and, you know, all this sort of crap. And now it's like, Trump is turning it around on them, and they're being forced to abide by the rules that they set for everybody else. And so I'm like, well, why is this a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. This is actually, like, you know, really, really good. Maybe they'll stop now, but my fear is that, of course, when, you know, they do eventually come back to power, which they will, they're going to say, oh, hey, let's go harder, you know? So, you know, Jimmy Kimmel is like, he doesn't mean anything in the course of this much bigger sort of debate.
No, I agree with you there. James Morrow, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Brilliant to speak with you.
Thanks, Gab.
Joining us now is Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Kinsey, it's great to see you again. Now, since Jimmy Kimmel was rightfully suspended for this disgusting lie about Charlie Kirk's murder, we've seen protests, we've seen lefties losing it, we've seen gunshots being fired, and of course, Hollywood celebrities going into meltdown as well. Here's Cynthia Nixon demanding Americans boycott Disney.
I just canceled my Disney Plus and Hulu subscriptions, and they asked me why. I hit other, and I wrote, because I believe in the First Amendment, reinstate Jimmy Kimmel. Now, my whole family is really going to miss Abbott Elementary. We are really going to miss Only Murders in the Building. But you know what? We would miss the First Amendment a whole lot more. Don't go to the theme parks. Don't go on the cruises. Cancel your subscriptions. Now.
And here is Mark Ruffalo losing it as well, saying, think of yourselves as living under the Taliban.
We saw Jimmy Kimmel's show was canceled. We don't know what the reasons are, really. It's very cloudy and murky. I don't understand what's happening right now. My industry doesn't understand what's happening right now. But what they do understand is our freedom of speech is being attacked. I heard Mark Maron today talk about it. He said, you guys were so afraid of being canceled. You went out and you screamed and you yelled about being canceled. But the cancellation was coming from people who didn't like what you had to say. It was coming from people who didn't agree with what you were saying and were speaking out about it. This cancellation is the United States government coming and taking your voice away from you. Think of yourselves living under the Taliban, because that's where we're headed.
I mean, isn't it wild seeing parts of the left just pretending that Jimmy Kimmel being suspended was a greater attack on free speech than actually the murder of Charlie Kirk? We've seen other Hollywood celebrities as well just lose it. Jennifer Aniston and Ben Affleck were condemning the decision to suspend Jimmy Kimmel. And now, of course, Disney has caved. The show will be returning, Kinsey. But what do you make of this? What happened to accountability when you lie on air?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year my Christmas tree topper will be the picture of Cynthia Nixon in her Make Abortion Great Again hat, because nothing screams morals and values like Cynthia Nixon promoting aborting babies. First of all, Sinclair is still refusing to air Jimmy Kimmel. So that's at least 40 big city markets that will not be airing Jimmy Kimmel tomorrow night. I think that that's important. Claire said you need to apologize to the Kirk family, and you need to make a big fat donation to either Turning Point or the Kirk family directly. Jimmy's refused to do that. It's my understanding that he is refusing to apologize during his monologue when he does return. And so Sinclair said, that's fine. We're just not going to air you. But yes, that one New York Post headline that read Jennifer Aniston and Ben Affleck joined 400 celebs in condemning Jimmy Kimmel's suspension, a dark moment for freedom of speech. Nothing is darker than the inside of Charlie Kirk's coffin. America's freedom of speech was jeopardized the second he took a bullet to his throat while exercising his free speech. These celebrities feigning outrage because their friend was put in timeout is insulting to the rest of us.
Couldn't agree more. Really well said. And as well, we heard from these lefties blaming Donald Trump for Jimmy's suspension. Meanwhile, you know, his ratings were going down. He was losing advertisers, and his audience was plummeting by a significant amount, around 40%. And people blaming Donald Trump because Jimmy Kimmel says a disgusting lie just to smear MAGA, as you say, isn't going to apologise. Are these lefties who are quick to blame Donald Trump? I mean, are they going to thank him now that he's reinstated?
No, absolutely not. My God, no. Would they acknowledge that they got their way or acknowledge that the First Amendment, remains an important issue here in the United States? They will ignore it. They only acknowledge each other. It's the 1% that they care about. And we have to vote, and with our dollars as well. If you don't like what a celebrity is saying, stop watching their stuff. Don't buy their book. Don't see their movies.
Now, the conservative world, of course, gathered in Arizona to remember the brilliant Charlie Kirk. And, of course, Erica Kirk, wasn't she just amazing to watch, Kinsey? She, of course, is the widow of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, and she remembered her husband's legacy and spoke about their secret to their marriage. Listen to this.
And someone once asked me how Charlie and I... how we kept our marriage so strong when he was busy traveling. And our little secret, it was love notes. Every Saturday, Charlie wrote one for me, and he never missed a Saturday. And in every single one of them, he'd tell me what his highlight was for the week, how grateful he was for me and our babies. And always at the end, he would always end it with asking the most beautiful question. He'd always end it by asking, please let me know how I can better serve you as a husband.
And Kinsey, I think that was such an inspiration to all of us.
Oh, so sweet. She gave an interview to the New York Times where she talked about how she's unable to wash his bath towels, the last, bath towels that he used, which broke my heart to read that. She's having trouble sleeping. She's changing the different places around the house that she's sleeping. But he journaled all the time. She talked about love notes there, but he kept journals that she never read. And she's just now getting into some of those journals. And she was talking about how proud she was, just how brilliant he was. And to read the way his mind worked and what was heavy on his heart at the time. So I'm curious to see if we'll be able to get access to those as well, because I think that that's something that would benefit all of us.
Absolutely. I certainly hope so. Now, Donald Trump's second state visit to Britain began with a royal welcome from Prince William, Princess Catherine, King Charles and Queen Camilla. And this photograph of the President and Princess Catherine has gone viral. Look at it there. I mean, Kinsey, talk to us about that visit. Well, how would you describe it? Has it strengthened the bond between the US and the UK?
Well, first of all, I would just say flirt alert when you look at that photo right there. It's the cutest thing. Prince William and Princess Catherine are proving to be very powerful assets for Britain on the world stage. Their state visit with President Trump wasn't just about tradition and ceremony. It delivered real results. The couple's global popularity drew enormous attention, helping attract major investments and new opportunities for the UK, millions of dollars. Their soft diplomatic power is showing how influence and image can translate into economic impact. But Trump did try to date Prince William's mother, so perhaps he should watch his wife.
Now, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made a surprise appearance at a benefit concert, I should say, after this emotional meeting with King Charles. Now, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex attended this concert, which supports Santa Barbara's county's first responders. Now, we know Meghan Markle joined Harry on stage at the show. There were other celebrities there, such as Oprah. And the concert, I suppose, marked Harry and Meghan's first public appearance since Harry met with his dad in the UK. And so there are reports that Charles and Harry spoke for around an hour, maybe just shy. What are you hearing about that meeting?
Well, fun fact, Meghan wore reportedly $300,000 worth of jewelry to this event. Charity events are designed to shine a spotlight on those in need, but Meghan's dazzling display drew attention away from the cause and onto her wardrobe. For someone who talks so much about compassion and equality, critics are arguing that the optics feel a little out of touch here. When it comes to the meeting, yeah, right. When it comes to the meeting, I'll tell you that somebody from Team Sussex is leaking like a faucet over here in the United States. They told Us Weekly that there were hugs and tears, and the King and Prince Harry missed each other so much that Prince Harry wrote a handwritten note to the King telling him he really wanted this reunion. And is that not the perfect example of why the British royal family should not trust this couple? Because they can't keep any secrets, and they could potentially monetize any information they get from the British royal family. So I would say to King Charles, proceed with caution, please, sir.
Yes, good advice. And now King Charles has reportedly told Prince Harry in no uncertain terms that he'll ever be allowed to return as a half-in, half-out working royal. And of course, this was after that meeting, which was initially kind of labelled as a step forward, even perhaps a royal reset. But, you know, maybe it wasn't. And also, Kinsey, Prince William didn't meet with Prince Harry.
Can you blame him? Yeah, so the reason that this headline is so important is because over the weekend, somebody, again from Team Sussex, leaked to the Daily Mail that Harry could potentially be seen at official engagements next to King Charles as a show of unity. And so the palace had to swoop in and say, absolutely not. No half in, half out. That is what the Queen wanted, and that's what we're going to continue with. But sources told the Telegraph and the Daily Mail's Rebecca English that they feel like this is Team Harry trying to get between Prince William and King Charles. And I have to tell you, I believe that's the truth, that some of these stories are meant to get between the two.
Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, thank you so much for speaking with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.